not just about trucks. I mean, whether you guys like trucks or not, it's about life. And it's about how we grew our business and how we got to the point where we feel like we are living the American dream.
A company called Hindenburg, and they wrote this huge report mixed with half-truths, some truths, lies, and they released it. They accused him of like blatant scam.
From the moment Diesel Brothers first hit television screens, fans knew this wasn't just another automotive reality show. It was loud, wild, unapologetic, and filled with the kind of energy that only true gearheads could bring to the screen. But behind the laughter, roaring diesel engines, and insane truck builds, there was something more complex. A story that not everyone saw coming. And at the heart of it all stood a man known as Heavy D, Dave Sparks, the charismatic leader, builder, and dreamer whose name would one day echo in controversy. They warned us about Heavy D, about how his drive, his ambition, and his obsession with pushing limits might one day go too far. But back then, no one wanted to believe it. Before the fame, before the massive social media following and the multi-million-dollar truck builds, Heavy D was just a kid from Utah with a dream bigger than any diesel engine he'd ever touch. He wasn't born into fame or fortune. He built it with his own hands, turning wrenches in dusty garages, running heavy equipment, and hustling through jobs just to make ends meet. His charisma and work ethic drew people in, and soon he teamed up with his best friend Diesel Dave. Together, they turned their passion for diesel trucks into something legendary. But as the lights of fame started to shine brighter, so did the shadows that came with it. The kind of shadows that no one talks about until they can't be ignored. When Discovery Channel picked up Diesel Brothers, it was an instant hit. Fans loved watching the crew turn old, broken-down trucks into mind-blowing diesel monsters. The show was more than entertainment. It was an escape into a world of creativity, friendship, and raw horsepower. But those who knew Heavy D personally say that fame changed him. Some saw it as confidence. Others saw it as ego. He went from being the guy who loved to help others fix their trucks to the man who couldn't stop chasing the next big project, the next big headline, the next viral stunt. And that's when the warnings began. Industry insiders, fellow mechanics, even friends. They all saw that Heavy D's ambition might be pushing him into dangerous territory, both legally and personally. As the Diesel Brothers brand exploded, Heavy D started taking on bigger projects and riskier ventures. The trucks got wilder, the stunts got more extreme, and the line between entertainment and recklessness began to blur. One of the first signs of trouble came when environmental groups started taking notice. Diesel engines, especially modified ones, have long been criticized for their emissions. But the Diesel Brothers weren't just modifying trucks. They were pushing them far beyond environmental limits, and often right in front of cameras. To fans, it was epic. To regulators, it was a direct violation. The warnings became louder. People tried to tell Heavy D to slow down, to take a step back, but he didn't listen. He thought he was untouchable, that the fans would always back him no matter what. But that illusion shattered when the EPA lawsuit hit. The government accused the Diesel Brothers of violating the Clean Air Act, claiming they tampered with emissions control systems on diesel trucks and sold those modified vehicles to the public. What had started as a fun, rebellious TV show suddenly turned into a legal nightmare. Heavy D found himself at the center of it all, facing fines, public backlash, and the possibility that his empire could crumble. Fans who once cheered him on now questioned everything. Had the fame really gone to his head? Or was he just a victim of a system that didn't understand the diesel culture he represented? The courtroom scenes were tense. Prosecutors argued that Heavy D's team knowingly violated federal laws. The Diesel Brothers argued that they were simply passionate builders, not criminals. But when the judge finally ruled, it was clear that Heavy D's world would never be the same again. The team was fined hundreds of thousands of dollars, and their reputation took a major hit. For the first time, the laughter, the brotherhood, and the roaring engines went quiet. The warnings had come true. People had told Heavy D that this would happen, and now he was living the consequences. After the dust settled from the lawsuit, Heavy D found himself standing in a very different world. The cameras stopped rolling, the fame didn't feel as glamorous, and suddenly the same fans who once cheered his wild builds were now questioning his integrity. For a man who had built his entire image around being fearless and unstoppable, this was a moment of reckoning. Heavy D later admitted in interviews that those days were some of the hardest of his life. He wasn't just fighting for his career, he was fighting for his identity. Everything he had worked for was now seen through a lens of controversy. He realized that being a TV star and being a builder were two very different things, and that fame had taken him away from what he loved most, creating something with his hands, not for views, not for money, but for the pure love of diesel power. What many people didn't see behind the scenes was how much the lawsuit affected the Diesel brothers as a family. Diesel Dave, the muscle, and the rest of the crew had stood by Heavy D through every step, but even among them, tensions grew. The stress, the financial pressure, and the negative attention started to wear them down. The show that had once been built on laughter and friendship now carried a weight that was hard to ignore. Discovery Channel stayed quiet for a while, unsure of whether the show's reputation could recover. And for Heavy D, that silence was louder than any engine he had ever built. For the first time, he began to question everything, his choices, his image, and the cost of his ambition. But here's where the story takes a turn most people didn't expect. Instead of walking away or disappearing like many reality stars do after controversy, Heavy D decided to rebuild not just his reputation, but his entire purpose. He started using his platform to talk about accountability, about what it means to take responsibility when you've made mistakes. He opened up about the pressures of fame, about how easy it is to lose sight of who you are when the world keeps telling you to be bigger, louder, and wilder. It was a side of Heavy D no one had ever seen before, raw, humble, and deeply reflective. Some fans turned away, saying he had changed. But many others saw growth. They saw a man who had been knocked down, and instead of blaming the world, he was standing back up with lessons learned. What truly shocked everyone was how Heavy D began channeling his energy into something new. He started focusing on clean energy projects, electric vehicle conversions, and even using his influence to push for innovation in the automotive world, something almost no one saw coming. It was ironic, really. The man once sued for violating emissions laws was now advocating for cleaner, smarter technology. It was as if the lawsuit had opened his eyes to a bigger picture. He started talking about sustainability, responsibility, and how the future of diesel might not be what people expected. And through it all, he remained unapologetically himself, honest, blunt, and passionate. Yet even with all his new projects and good intentions, Heavy D couldn't fully escape the ghosts of his past. Every interview, every social media post, someone would bring up the lawsuit, the controversy, or the idea that maybe he had gone too far. But those who truly followed him noticed something powerful. He stopped trying to prove himself. He didn't argue. He didn't make excuses. Instead, he let his actions speak. Whether it was building custom rigs for charity, donating to first responders, or mentoring young mechanics, Heavy D quietly began redefining what his legacy would be. The same people who once warned us about him, who said his ambition would destroy him, were now watching him rise again. This time with a purpose that was deeper than fame. Behind the beard, the trucks, and the television personality, there's a man who learned that sometimes life has to break you before it teaches you what really matters. Heavy D once said that success doesn't mean never falling. It means learning how to get up every single time. And in many ways, that's what makes his story resonate with so many fans today. It's not just about trucks or TV anymore. It's about redemption. It's about how one man went from being the face of controversy to becoming a symbol of perseverance and growth. When Heavy D finally stepped back into the spotlight, he wasn't the same man who had once reveled in viral fame and roaring diesel smoke. Something in him had shifted, a kind of maturity, or perhaps a quiet understanding that the world was watching not just his builds, but his choices. Fans could sense it too. The Heavy D who returned wasn't just a TV personality anymore. He was a man on a mission. But with that return came a new wave of scrutiny and a new set of warnings. People said he was playing with fire again, pushing boundaries in ways that could either reinvent his career or destroy it completely. Heavy D's comeback wasn't through flashy TV episodes this time, but through something more personal: online projects, community outreach, and behind-the-scenes innovation. He launched massive custom builds, not for fame, but to test ideas that had never been tried before. Some were for off-road dominance, others for alternative fuel testing, and some, he said, just to see if it could be done. To his followers, it was classic Heavy D, the relentless dreamer who never stopped tinkering. But to critics, it looked like history might be repeating itself. They warned that Heavy D's tendency to take risks and defy limits could land him in hot water again. But if there's one thing that's always defined him, it's that he never let fear dictate his path. Behind the scenes, though, Heavy D was juggling more than anyone realized. Running businesses, filming projects, managing lawsuits, and keeping his family out of the public spotlight took a toll. Close friends later revealed that Heavy D often spent long nights alone in his shop, working through his thoughts while building something with his hands. The one place he still found peace. In those moments, it wasn't about money or fame. It was about rediscovering himself. He once said in an interview, "People think trucks are just machines. But to me, every build is a reflection of where my head's at." And that line summed up everything: the chaos, the redemption, and the drive that kept him going even when the world told him to stop. Then came the announcement that caught everyone off guard. Heavy D's vision to take diesel performance into a completely new direction, blending traditional power with sustainable energy. Fans were divided. Some hailed him as a visionary who could change the future of the industry. Others warned that he was setting himself up for another fall. They said it was impossible to merge the rugged, dirty world of diesel with the clean, futuristic image of electric technology. But Heavy D didn't care. For him, it wasn't about picking sides. It was about proving that innovation could come from anywhere, even from someone the system once tried to shut down. In his eyes, every obstacle was just another challenge waiting to be engineered into submission. The new projects weren't just about trucks anymore. Heavy D began collaborating with engineers, environmental scientists, and even major companies. People who once criticized him were now sitting at his table. It was one of the most unexpected comebacks in recent reality TV history. But of course, as always, success attracts attention, and not all of it good. Rumors began circulating online that Heavy D's new ventures were facing massive costs and technical setbacks. Some claimed he was burning through millions trying to prove a point. Others said he was risking everything to stay relevant in an industry that had already moved on. Once again, the warnings echoed through forums, news sites, and fan pages. He's pushing too hard. He's going to lose it all again. But those close to Heavy D knew something the critics didn't. This time, he wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing meaning. The same man who once stood accused of breaking environmental laws was now trying to leave behind a cleaner legacy. And even when investors backed out or prototypes failed or online critics mocked him, Heavy D never wavered. Because in his mind, every setback was just another lesson. Every failure was a chance to rebuild stronger. That was the heart of who he had always been. Not just a builder of trucks, but a builder of ideas. As his reputation began to rebuild, Heavy D also used his voice to inspire others, especially younger mechanics and dreamers who had once looked up to him. He spoke openly about mental health, resilience, and the dangers of letting fame define your worth. He admitted that for years he thought success was about being unstoppable. But now he knew real strength was about learning when to stop, reflect, and start again. His words struck a chord across the diesel and automotive community. Heavy D had gone from being the diesel outlaw to the man preaching discipline, innovation, and humility, a transformation no one saw coming. As the years went by, the name Heavy D became more than just a brand. It became a symbol of survival. A man who had been torn down by the system, by fame, and by his own mistakes, yet somehow managed to rise again. But even as he built new projects and inspired thousands, the warnings never truly stopped. Every time Heavy D unveiled something bold or controversial, whispers followed. People said, "He's doing it again. He's pushing too hard. It's only a matter of time." And maybe, deep down, Heavy D knew they were right. That part of who he was would always live on the edge, always chasing something just out of reach. Because for him, that's where life existed, in the chase. Then came the moment that truly silenced everyone. A rare interview where Heavy D finally broke down the walls and spoke honestly about everything. He talked about fame, failure, and the weight of public judgment. He admitted that at one point he almost walked away from it all. The trucks, the show, even the name Diesel Brothers. He said, "I lost myself trying to live up to what the world wanted me to be. I forgot who I was before the cameras, before the fame." It was a confession that hit fans hard. The once unshakable man, known for his confidence and laughter, was now baring his soul in front of millions. There was no editing, no polish, just honesty. And for many, that was the first time they truly saw the man behind the beard. He spoke about the nights when the garage felt empty, when success didn't fill the silence, and when the sound of an engine couldn't drown out the doubt inside his head. He admitted that the lawsuit had broken more than just his reputation. It broke his trust in people. It made him question who was real and who was just there for the ride. But he also said that the experience humbled him. It stripped away the illusion of fame and left behind only the truth, that at the end of the day, it wasn't the trucks or the TV cameras that mattered. It was the people. The crew, the fans who stuck around, and the lessons that came from losing everything and still finding a way to stand. When the interviewer asked him if he had any regrets, Heavy D paused for a long moment before answering. He said, "If I could go back, I'd tell my younger self to slow down, to listen when people warn you, not because they want to stop you, but because they see what you can't." It was a moment of clarity that summed up his entire journey. The warnings weren't meant to tear him down, and they were meant to save him. But sometimes you have to walk through the fire yourself to understand the heat, and Heavy D did. Every misstep, every mistake, every headline. They all led him to become the man he is today. Wiser, grounded, and more aware of the power his choices hold. Today, Heavy D continues to build, not just trucks, but legacies. He invests in new technologies, supports veteran charities, and mentors young builders across the country. He still loves diesel, still loves the sound of a revving engine, but now it's different. There's purpose behind it. He once said that every build he does now has to mean something, whether it helps someone, teaches something, or leaves the world a little better than before. It's a philosophy born from pain, but one that has turned him into something much greater than just a TV star. He's become a reminder that even when the world warns you, even when it doubts you, the choice to change, to grow, is always yours. And that's why, looking back, the phrase "they warned us" about Heavy D has taken on a whole new meaning. They warned us because they saw a storm coming, a man too ambitious for his own good, too bold to play it safe. And they were right. He stumbled, he fell, but they didn't see what came after, the rebuilding, the redemption, the rebirth. The world warned us about Heavy D, but we didn't listen. And maybe that's a good thing, because if we had, we might have missed the story of one of the most powerful comebacks reality television has ever seen. The story of Heavy D isn't just about diesel engines or fame. It's about learning that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most meaningful destinations. That behind every warning, there's a lesson waiting to be learned. And maybe that's what Heavy D was trying to show us all along, that no matter how many times you're warned or how many times you fall, you can always build again.